Hello, everyone. Today we're going to cover the topic on empiricism. This is a current of thought that is opposed to rationalism, and I'm going to be presenting with you a couple of slides, and we're going to be also watching a couple of videos for this session. So please just follow along, and later on, if you have any questions during class time, we can solve them. So I'm going to start presenting. Okay, so as I was telling you, today we're going to be talking about empiricism. First, we need to talk or to define what is empiricism. Empiricism is a philosophical current that uses experience as a regulation to approach to truth. This means that for empiricism, uh, what we can perceive through our senses is the thing that we're going to be using as a main source in order to achieve knowledge. In empiricism, for instance, they are going to deny the absolutism of truth. This means that for empiricism, since what we can know is only that thing that we know through our senses, there is not such a thing as an absolute truth. For instance, for empiricism, um, they wouldn't state in empiricism that there are truths that will always be there, or for them, truth is not something that is already given and we need to unveil as something that would happen, for instance, in idealism with Plato, or as we saw in previous classes in rationalism with Descartes. For instance, they would say that if there is an absolute truth, this absolute truth is not accessible by man. If this absolute truth is not accessible by man, then what we need to do is only to focus on the possibility of knowing the truth, or the truth that we can acquire by our senses. They say, for instance, that all concepts of truth must be analyzed, and sometimes they must also even change. So just try to think about how the individuals, how humankind thought about how the earth was flat back in ancient ages, and that was true for one moment. And nowadays we think the other way around. We don't think anymore the that the earth is flat, because we have now more evidence to prove that the earth has a different characteristic. This is just a starting point on what is empiricism. Now I'm going to introduce to all of you this philosopher David Hume, born in 1711, died in 1776. He was a middle class. He was a member of a middle class family. Uh, his work, or all his lifetime, is framed during the Enlightenment. He was contemporary of Voltaire, Diderot, Rousseau. He actually kind of experienced the French Revolution during those times. Um, he worked mainly as a librarian and a diplomat, and this gave him a lot of different possibilities of understanding knowledge in different ways. While he was a diplomat, he was traveling around Europe, and traveling around Europe gave him the possibility of seeing how in different places of the world they constructed knowledge and how they doubted about knowledge. Most of his friends said that he was a really interesting man, someone that was always funny, and someone that was really interesting to talk with. He was really good friends with Adam Smith, and he wrote many books. Some of the most important are Treatise on Human Nature, Natural History of Religion, and Moral and Political Essays. This is the philosopher that we're going to be discussing today, David Hume. So if you have now the time, please go to my YouTube channel and find this video on David Hume. Just go to my YouTube channel, go there to Pensamiento Filosófico, and there you will find David Hume. So as for this moment now, please just click pause into this video and go to the next video. So I am going to assume that you all have seen already this video on David Hume. Mainly what they are talking to us is like referring the main ideas on empiricism that I've been talking about, and they are also providing you like an overall idea on who David Hume was. Today, as I was telling you, we're going to focus on some particular ideas. The first idea that I want to discuss with you is that David Hume is going to be really critical to innate ideas. Innate ideas, as you may remember from rationalism, are those that are presented by René Descartes, or even in idealism with Plato, as some elements, some ideas, some things that are already inside our heads, and that from these ideas we can then deduce the whole understanding of nature. For instance, Rene Descartes would say that God exists because within our head, within our head, we have the concept of perfection. Since we are imperfect beings, we cannot be the origin of the concept of perfection. Therefore, there must be an existence that is superior to us, that has imbued into our heads the idea of perfection. This existence, Rene Descartes is going to call it God. However, in empiricism, we're going to criticize this idea. For instance, David Hume would say that God existence, immortality of the soul, and simplicity of the soul are three elements that cannot be verified in experience, because no one has seen God, no one has proved that soul is immortal, and no one has proved that the soul, if the souls exist, is simple and similar to the essence of God. So what empiricism is doing mainly is is demanding that every knowledge that we have is based in experience. If something cannot be verified in experience for the empirical philosophers, then it must be questioned. Hope this makes the main ideas for empiricism clear. What I would like you to realize here is that they are actually presenting a way to construct the world based on evidence, and this is actually the way we usually construct our knowledge nowadays. So, Hume is going to think about the origin of ideas, and he's going to propound two ways of dividing the way we have ideas. For instance, he says on the first hand that we have thoughts, and on the other hand, we have impressions. When talking about thoughts, Hume says that thoughts are vague, abstract, and undefined. Thoughts are things that you cannot fully know or understand, whereas in the other hand, impressions are precise and intense. So, just as an example of this, imagine that right now that you're watching this video with me, you just close your eyes, and when you close your eyes, you just keep on listening to my voice. If you keep on listening to my voice, and I ask you, like, please describe who am I, or how are my looks, you may be able to say that I'm Sasha, that I have a mustache, that I'm not wearing my glasses, that maybe today I'm wearing a shirt, but you may not remember quite well the color that I'm using. Or you could also see that there are some things behind me, but you won't be able to fully describe it. What would say to this is that what you're having over right now in your head is a thought of who am I, and this thought is vague, abstract, and not fully defined, because actually you just have an image that is a copy of reality, and you are presenting that copy to your head, and with that copy you're trying to create knowledge. On the other hand, what Hume is going to say is that impressions are stronger than thought. Because if you were not right now virtually looking at me, and you were actually looking at me inside in the classroom, you would be experiencing something that is more vivid. This is, for instance, just for you to know, like, it is not the same thing when I tell you that a kiss is something really wonderful, and I'm just describing to you as as a thought that is vague, abstract, and undefined. And it is completely different to actually live the fact of kissing someone. Okay, when you kiss someone, this is really precise and definitely far more intense. I hope this example helps you to understand the difference between thoughts and impressions. For David Hume, impressions are the main way for us to construct any possible knowledge, because mainly they are more linked to our experience, and they are more precise and more intense. So this being said, let's go now to a brief video. Please, right now, go again to my YouTube channel, go to Pensamiento Filosófico, and there go please to Hume Skepticism number 1. Okay? So I'm going to assume again that you have finished watching this video, and I'm going to explain some of the topics that you may have seen during this video. So the first thing that this video is presenting to us is that there are, for Hume, two ways of getting to some ideas or getting to some particular knowledge. The first way he's going to say is relation of ideas. When you have a judgment that is presenting relation of ideas, you're going to see that there is a concept that is universal, that is abstract, that is necessary, it will never change, and it will always keep on being the same way. That is a relationship of ideas. For instance, an example of a relation of ideas is when I tell you that a triangle has 3 angles, or that a square has 4 angles, or that a circle is round. In a relation of ideas, we have some knowledge that is universal, abstract, and that is always truth. The problem with this kind of knowledge based on relation of ideas is that this knowledge does not allow us to know further on what we see on everyday life. That is why for Hume we need to deal now with matters of fact. He says matters of fact are those things that happen after you experience them. It's affirmations that need to be observed in order to be verified. So for instance, a matter of fact could be that I tell you that right now when I'm recording this video, I can tell you that it is 11:44 in the 11:44 p.m. So if you watch this video, you may have the fact that I tell you right now it's 11:44 p.m. So right now, if you were watching this with me, you would say that my affirmation is right. However, if you watch this video tomorrow, as you're gonna do, then my affirmation of right now being 11:44 p.m. is false. So what Hume is going to say is that matters of fact are these concepts or these judgments or this way in which we construct knowledge that are susceptible to change. And they are susceptible to change. Remember about the concept or the theory that we saw with Aristotle, that truth is a correspondence truth, meaning that if I say something and I can verify that to reality, then that makes my statement truth. Okay, so far so good with this. The main idea on Hume's on the first video that you saw is to make a distinction between what are relation of ideas that are universal, necessary, and they can also be called as a priori. A priori meaning something that happens before experience. Or on the other hand, we have matters of fact that the main knowledge is contingent, it is particular, and they can be linked to the concept of a posteriori. A posteriori meaning what happens after experience, or something that you need to experience in order to know. Okay, so now let's keep on going. Please now go again to my YouTube channel, go to Pensamiento Filosófico, and over there in Pensamiento Filosófico, go now to Hume Skepticism 2. Okay, so what you saw in this video is the skeptical argument on induction. What Hume says is that we tend to realize that there's nature, and that in nature sometimes there are some phenomena that have some particular cause, and they're going to create a particular effect. However, while doing this, what happens is that we are using induction as a method. When we use induction as a method, what happens is that we tend to think that the future will resemble the past. This leads us to believe that there is some sort of uniformity of nature, that nature is something that can be predicted, can be measured, can be um, used as an object. Okay, that's that's what we think about nature. And this sorry, I just got lost and confused for a moment. So this these laws of nature that we see through inductive arguments tend to present the idea of some uniformity that is going to be always produced in the same way. What Hume says is that even though we see that in the past something has happened and then has led to one particular conclusion, that is not necessarily going to happen tomorrow. What he says is that we observe this laws of nature, this uniformity of nature, and we construct these possible ideas that may lead to plausible conclusions, but there's always the chance for this not to happen. So let me give you an example on how an argument based on induction can be false. So imagine that today you are now 17 to 19, you receive a phone call by your special someone, your girlfriend or boyfriend, and she tells you, we need to talk. Then you go to this coffee shop where you're going to be meeting with your girlfriend, and she tells you that she wants to break up with you. Then you just cry, she cries, you just say goodbye, and everyone takes their own way. That happened when you were 18 to 19, as you are right now. Again, when you are 21 or 22, you receive a similar phone call, someone telling you, we need to talk. You go to the coffee shop and you receive the same result. If that were to happen later on, when you were, I don't know, maybe 33, and receive the same phone call, different person, but same topic, we need to talk, your immediate inference or your immediate inductive idea would be that the other person may want to break up. However, there's always a chance in which the other person does not want to break up, but to give you some fantastic news. So what we're just watching over here is how Hume is presenting a way for you to doubt about induction. He's going to say that induction is the main way we construct our knowledge. And what happens is that induction is something that is so strong with us that we cannot fully deny it. Induction, it is actually not rational. It's mainly based on feelings. But what Hume is going to say is that since it is the only possible way we have to construct knowledge, we better stick with induction, even though we know it is not rational and it is merely a strong habit. Okay, hope this video has been clarifying for has been good for all of you. Please, if you were not able to watch the prior videos that were mentioned during this presentation, make sure you watch them, because other way you're not going to fully understand the topic that I'm explaining. And see you next class, and we're going to be discussing this and checking if there are some errors. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Have a good one.